Welcome everyone. We're exploring today whether social media platforms should be regulated as public utilities. Think about how these platforms impact our daily lives. Could regulating them ensure fair access and limit harm, or risk stifling innovation? Let's dive in.
It's like when telephone companies were regulated. Isn't it logical to think of social media in the same way, given how crucial it is for communication? Or is there more at stake?
But don't we run the risk of giving too much power to the government? They might control which voices are heard. Have we learned nothing from past censorship issues?
Yet without regulation, aren't we leaving room for misinformation to spread unchecked? History shows us the consequences of unregulated media during significant events.
Fascinating point. We've all heard of how social media shapes opinions and connections. So how do we balance innovation with public interest? As we consider the current role of social media platforms, let's reflect on how these digital spaces have transformed into more than just communication tools. They are now cultural hubs and community builders. Would regulating them as utilities enhance these roles or hinder their organic growth?
I see social media as today's public square where discourse thrives. Sure, regulation could provide a much-needed structure, but isn't the very appeal of these platforms their spontaneity and organic nature?
Guy, while I get your point, we mustn't forget how these platforms can manipulate opinions and emotions. Facebook's data scandal is a prime example. Are we equipping users with enough awareness to demand ethical use of their data?
Indeed, Ryan. Plus, what about marginalized voices? Would regulation ensure protections or, paradoxically, stifle them under formalized frameworks? The tension between these outcomes reminds us of past media control failures.
This nuanced landscape is exactly why dialogue is vital. We're wrestling with the delicate balance of fostering safe spaces while championing freedom and innovation. How do we ensure these platforms serve the public interest without losing their core vitality? Now, considering the idea of regulating social media as public utilities, we delve deeper. We've seen how these platforms have become more than just tech giants, they are now woven into our social fabric. So, what happens if regulatory measures are taken? Could it create an order that champions both inclusivity and innovation?
Maybe the key is to create a framework that preserves the essence while ensuring accountability. Think of it as evolving the town square to fit today's world. But would such regulation stifle the vitality that makes these platforms unique?
Guy, the challenge lies in striking that balance. Consider the historical lessons from media regulation, where sometimes freedom was compromised. Would regulation today prevent manipulation of public opinion without silencing minority voices?
That's a valid worry, Ryan. Nonetheless, without oversight, we're observing the proliferation of echo chambers and filter bubbles. Regulation could introduce safeguards to counter these negatives while promoting diversity of thought. Isn't addressing these issues critical for our social cohesion?
Great insights, everyone. We're left with the reflective question: how can regulators constructively shape social media's role to serve public interests without dampening their dynamic nature? This journey isn't about censoring or standardizing, but evolving how we connect. Your considerations have painted a vivid picture of what might be possible. Reflecting on these discussions, it's clear that regulating social media as public utilities isn't just about structure, it's about transforming how these platforms operate within our society. Does placing them under stricter oversight enhance public trust or create barriers to their spontaneous adaptability?
Regulation, in theory, might offer a safety net, but could it dull the spark that drives these companies to innovate? Remember how innovation often comes from the freedom to explore uncharted waters. Might regulations stifle that creativity, making social media less vibrant?
On the flip side, isn't it worth considering how some tech giants have stifled competition due to their sheer size and influence? Could regulation be an equalizer, helping smaller voices to emerge in a landscape dominated by a few giants?
That's a good point, Ryan. I know we're concerned about creativity, but doesn't a regulated framework also offer new avenues for innovative startups that focus on protecting user rights and promoting ethical data use? What if regulation ensured more meaningful connections and less algorithm-driven manipulation?
What resonates here is the importance of balance, ensuring regulation doesn't smother the spirit driving these platforms while addressing real-world concerns of misinformation, privacy, and market fairness. As we've explored, the potential for regulation isn't merely about control, but about shaping a future where social media enriches our lives responsibly.
Looking at historical precedents, it's clear regulation can create order in chaotic industries. But consider how the telecommunications industry flourished after regulation balanced innovation and control. Could social media achieve the same through smart governance?
Those regulations worked because they weren't fighting against the immediacy and scale of today's digital world. But there's a risk will slow innovation to a crawl. Remember how radio regulations sometimes hindered rather than helped. How would we prevent such pitfalls in the case of social media?
Bridging historical insights with modern challenges, we see new regulatory opportunities could spark innovation by leveling the playing field. With privacy concerns on the rise, some startups prioritize ethical data use. Could regulation support these emerging businesses while curbing the market dominance of tech giants?
The crossroads of regulation and innovation offers a fascinating study in balance. As we've seen with past technologies, smart regulations can guide industries towards societal benefit while preserving vitality. Moving forward, can we draft a regulatory framework that both empowers users and nurtures creativity? In examining global perspectives, one cannot ignore how different countries might approach regulation uniquely, reflecting their societal values and governance styles. Consider how Europe champions user protection through the GDPR versus the more laissez-faire approach seen in other regions. Could these differences influence global policies on regulating social media?
The European model shows how regulation can empower users while still nurturing innovation. It's a roadmap others might follow, but does it fully address the ever-evolving tech landscape? Might this approach risk alienating tech companies seeking less stringent environments?
While the GDPR sets a precedent in regions with less governmental trust, heavy regulations might fuel resistance, leading to digital black markets or censorship evasion tactics. How do we respect these differences without curbing global innovation flows?
That's insightful, Ryan. However, even varied regulation could unite under shared goals like preserving free speech and privacy. How can international cooperation play a role in creating universal standards benefiting diverse populations?
This dialogue underscores the subtleties of navigating social media regulation through a global lens. Balancing regional priorities with universal standards could shape a future where social media platforms are both innovative and equitable. It's a collective journey with diverse yet interconnected destinations. As we explore the ethics of regulation, we need to ask, does mandating equal access inadvertently suppress free expression or innovation? Social media's role in democratizing speech complicates this. Can regulation protect free speech without stifling diversity?
Ethical regulation could level the playing field, but might constrain innovation. Consider the past when TV was regulated too heavily, creativity dwindled. Are we risking a similar fate for social media?
On the contrary, regulation might enforce ethical standards. Without it, tech giants dominate, limiting smaller voices. Could regulation ensure a fair, more innovative landscape for everyone?
Regulations could inspire innovation by setting ethical benchmarks. Imagine if new startups prioritized user rights and meaningful engagement. Could this shift foster healthier digital communities?
Reflecting on our dialogue, ethical regulation is about striking a balance, empowering innovation while addressing concerns like misinformation. How can regulatory frameworks evolve to nurture both creativity and social responsibility? As we delve into the economic implications of regulating social media as public utilities, consider the financial ripple effects. Would curbing the power of tech giants redistribute wealth and innovation opportunities, or could it destabilize an economically pivotal sector?
Regulation might reshape the market, allowing smaller players to enter. Look at how breaking up monopolies in utilities fostered competitive pricing and innovation. Might we witness the same in social media, creating new economic landscapes?
Yet, imposing such changes risks economic upheaval. Remember the unintended consequences during past industry regulations, like job losses in overly restricted sectors. How do we mitigate these risks without stifling social media's economic contributions?
Despite that, unchecked monopolies could cost consumers more in the long run. Regulation might cap prices and protect user rights, driving economic fairness. Isn't consumer protection an integral part of sustaining a healthy economy?
Considering the economic facets, could regulating social media level the playing field, fostering fair competition and innovation? Or could such shifts risk unsettling a vital economic sector?
Regulation might mirror past successes in utilities, encouraging competition and affordability. Could this transform social media into a more equitable market?
But the economic shocks from similar past efforts are concerning. Would strict regulation risk disrupting a sector that's crucial for innovation and employment?
Nonetheless, unchecked corporate power could lead to consumer exploitation. Could regulation ensure fairness in pricing and user protection, sustaining a healthy economy?
As we reflect on this discussion, it's apparent that regulating social media as public utilities involves more than just oversight, it's a transformation of their societal function. The core question remains, can we manage these changes to foster trust and retain adaptability?
While regulation can provide a safety net and accountability, there's the risk it could suppress the creativity driving these platforms. Consider if regulatory shackles might dull social media's innovative spark.
Conversely, unchecked tech giants can limit competition. Regulating these platforms could democratize the digital space, giving smaller players an opportunity to shine. Could this foster a fair digital ecosystem?
Regulation might inspire new innovations focused on ethical standards. Imagine startups prioritizing transparency, privacy, and user rights. Could this reshape healthy digital communities?
Our takeaway is the importance of crafting regulations that balance social responsibility with innovation. Moving forward, can we establish frameworks that empower creativity while safeguarding public interests?